everybody. Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative News Break. I'm excited. I'm bringing it to you a little later in the day, which means those of you who are working hard at lunch and are just now getting into your first, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, beer or glass of wine, are going to get to watch this live when you typically wouldn't be able to because you're out there busting your hump for the man working. So hopefully we can pick up some new attenders in this time slot. It is 5:46 p.m. Eastern. I am Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative, and we are here to bring you your Tennessee headlines for conservatives. If you have yet to sign up for our e-newsletter, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, and we deliver the news straight to your inbox each and every day. And they're the kind of headlines that you will not get in your liberal rag broadsheets in major metro markets all across Tennessee. And if you like what we do, do go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. And if you give any amount, we will send you these two proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers, along with a directory of your elected officials so that you can badger them and kindly influence them to vote in a conservative manner. And finally, for those of you, many of you are getting this today. We saw some of these come across the transom, your proud Tennessee Conservative Tumbler. And if you were to put in Joe Biden's policies into this, and if you put it in there with a lot of bourbon and shook it out, it would actually come out as good Trump era policy. It has magical properties. Okay, you can put a silver ring in there and it'll come out platinum. That's how we do it. Let's get right into the headlines. Before we do that, if you're conservative and if you're proud to be a conservative, and if you are watching this newscast, if you would kindly put in your city and state in the comments section and let me know where you're watching from. And as I go through these headlines, tell me your opinions about them. And if you have questions, put your questions in the comments section. If you want us to cover a story, if you've got a hot tip, email news@TennesseeConservativeNews.com. We will chase it down. And let's get right into some of these breaking stories. I'm ready if you are. Here we go. All right, first story, and this is the state level. And here's how it goes. Headline: Candace Owens and Vernon Jones blast Democrats' record for Black Americans, which is frankly pretty pathetic. And as someone who grew up really poor, I have watched how government incentives have stripped people from their sense of self-worth. You know, I've heard it said before, and I think I heard this said by Alan West one time. It said self-esteem comes from doing esteemable things. And when you take away people's self-esteem, if you tell them constantly and continually that somebody else is the reason for their failures, if you tell them because of their skin color they have to think this way or act this way, that's racism. And at its essence, and Vernon and Candace and a lot of other people called folks out on this at the Blexit event in Chattanooga. I was there, could not stay the entire time. I had another obligation. But here's what happened. On Saturday afternoon, and that's this previous Saturday, Candace Owens and Vernon Jones and Robbie Starbuck, who is running for Congress in Nashville, Will Witt and Brandon Tatum took to the stage to talk about race, the Democratic Party, educational and social issues affecting Americans today. And the event sold out at the Signal with half of the guests seated and half in general admission standing. Sadly, they had to do a limited amount of guests. They could not pack it out like they normally would pre-COVID, although frankly, I don't see why not. Candace said, when you replace hard academics like reading and writing and sciences with things like critical race theory, a kid can tell you about white privilege, but they can't do their math homework. You're basically setting up a society which is going to mass produce failures, and we're going to mass produce angry failures. And buddy, that's the truth. When you don't push kids to excel at tangible, measurable academic achievements, but instead you coddle them and constantly tell them that all of their academic shortcomings are somebody else's fault, or maybe you don't even challenge them in the first place because you're in a broken educational system, that's not going to work. Vernon Jones, a former Democrat who became Republican in January 2021 after endorsing Donald Trump for re-election, he also spoke at the 2020 Republican National Committee. And if you remember, Vernon Jones was accosted by all these Black Lives Matter folks, protesters that came after him and surrounded him and the cops just trying to get back to the hotel room after the Republican National Convention. Now, um, I'm curious to see how this verdict comes in Minnesota. I'll be honest with you. I think they're going to burn the city down no matter what. I don't think it matters which verdict comes out. I think rioters and looters, thieves and cowards look for a place to steal and be cowardly no matter what the verdict is. I think it's going to burn anyway. And a lot of this, it can be put right at the place of these Democrat mayors and governors who've allowed these people to assault small business owners, individuals, police, law enforcement, etc. I think it's disgraceful. Back to the story. Jones said Black Lives Matter set out to destroy the nuclear family. Yeah, it was on their website. It was like the goal. All that matters to Black Lives Matter is the money. And I didn't leave the Democratic Party, Mr. Jones said. The Democratic Party left me. And I believe that that is the case for so many folks. And there were some other speakers there. Robbie Starbuck will be challenging Jim Cooper in 2021 for his seat in the U.S. Representatives. At the event, Starbuck expressed that having conservative beliefs is nothing to be ashamed about. Will Witt, a political influencer and media personality from Prager University, spoke about wokeness. There is nothing woke about claiming you care about the feelings of Black people when you turn around and advocate for the same programs and policies that have kept Black people down for decades. And that's the big issue here. The big issue here that we're constantly talking about at the Tennessee Conservative, it's about policy over personality. And this whole idea of wokeness, that you can virtue signal without looking at reality, when you can virtue signal without looking at the devastation of specific policies in communities, and you are somehow, even though you're causing the harm, you're the hero, while the people who want to address the issues constructively are the villains because they failed to go through some kind of ritualistic thing in front of people. That's how we've gotten into a lot of these issues. Next story, state level. Tennessee legislature proposes new position to handle federal lawsuits. And the reason that they're doing this, and I'll just give you kind of the long and short of it, uh, you know, the Attorney General in Tennessee is appointed by the Supreme Court. And a lot of times the legislature wants them to take a proactive stance on something like gun control. And because they have no interaction or direct control with that office, often the legislatures had to go out and get independent counsel to do things that really should have been done by the AG. And if you get a rhino AG, and if you have a very liberal federal government trying to take away states' rights, which is what they're trying to do, and trying to change the way things are going here in Tennessee, if you don't have a good rock rib conservative in the AG spot, and you've got to take a case or join cases, you may have to hire outside counsel. So here goes. Tennessee lawmakers are seeking out a way to gain more control over representation in the state and federal courts. Senator Paul Bailey of Sparta and Representative Ryan Williams of Cookeville are sponsoring bills which would allow the legislature to approve a new position that would have sole authority to represent the state when challenging the federal government. And the court has been, before in situations where it had to ask for outside counsel that the legislature paid for itself. According to Bailey, there have been several occasions when the Attorney General, Herbert Slatery, refused to take on legal battles the legislatures wanted to see fought. And the new solicitor, however, would be beholden to elected legislators and work for the people of Tennessee. And here's the quote from Bailey. This gives the legislature an opportunity to have direct solicitor general that would advocate on behalf of the citizens in Tennessee. And I think we need that. Next story. House passes Textbook Transparency Act and expands scholarship eligibility to homeschoolers. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly supported legislation this week that ensures all textbooks in the hands of Tennessee students are accessible for the public to view, as well they should be. You need transparency. Compared to the 90-day time frame, textbooks are currently required to be available to the public. This bill requires publishers to make these materials available so long as they are actively being used in the classroom. The bill now awaits passage in the Senate. The new House bill will expand the eligibility of homeschool students to receive the Hope and Tennessee Promise scholarships. Now, this is something that probably should have been done a long time ago. And the fact that it wasn't is kind of crappy, because if you think about it, if you homeschool your children, as we have before in our home, you're saving the state government $11,000 plus a year. and you're not creating a child, and in many cases with our schools being as messed up as they are, you're actually probably putting a school out into Tennessee work environment that can read, write, do arithmetic, and who understands hard work. So this is something that should have happened a long time ago, because I can guarantee you the scholastic accomplishments of homeschoolers far exceeds those of your average Tennessee student that comes out of public school, because the government schools are so bad. And only last time we checked, only 1 in 4 could read at grade level, and now it's even, or 1 in 3 could only read at grade level, and now it's even worse. House Bill 646 allows the students to qualify for the scholarship based on GPA, whereas currently homeschool students have had to rely solely on their ACT scores to establish eligibility for the scholarship. We need to be treating people differently. I agree with this. It also removes the requirement for a student to maintain a homeschool status for a minimum of 1 full calendar year prior to graduation. That's a good thing. Here's another story at the national level. Interior Secretary revokes Trump administration order for prioritizing energy development, which basically means we can watch our $2, almost $3 a gallon gas go up, and we can continue to watch this inflation roll in. U.S. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland on Friday revoked a dozen of the Trump administration's secretarial orders that prioritize energy development on federal lands. I mean, why would you do something like this that would help the American public if you're in the Biden administration? I can't think of any reason. Haaland signed a secretarial order revoking the past orders, and also signed a secretarial order establishing a climate task force. Okay, people are struggling. People are struggling under the weight of all this inflation. People are struggling because they're watching fuel costs go into products and manufacturing and services, and prices and everything is raising. And so instead of attacking the fact that energy prices are through the roof, let's tackle climate change, which is, I think, there's a climate change. Yes, is man responsible for it? Maybe to some small degree. Should we put the government in charge of it? No, absolutely not. That's Brandon Lewis's stance on climate change. Until the federal government can get the mail delivered without a deficit, until they can run the Senate cafeteria without going into a debt, I don't think we need to put them in charge of anything bigger. They've got enough fish to fry there. Among other Trump era orders reversed was an order revoking federal coal moratorium. The American Energy Independence Order that directed a review of the agency's actions and regulations on energy development in order to streamline the National Environmental Policy Act review process, directed the Outer Continental Shelf Energy Leasing Program in order to support and improve quarterly oil and gas lease sales. So it's drawn a number of legal challenges from industry groups and states that rely on oil and gas development for revenue, which makes perfect sense. So those are your conservative news headlines. Again, if you appreciate the type of work we're doing here, bringing you conservative news at the state and local level, please do go to the comments section. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us where you're from. Tell us what you want us to cover. If you got a hot tip, send us some kind of supporting evidence. We'll try to chase it down with our limited resources. And when you hit that support button, you can help us continue in this fight, because we need all of our subscribers to chip in. And when you do, we'll send you 2 Proud Tennessee conservative bumper stickers, this directory, and the famous, very famous, Proud Tennessee Conservative Tumbler. It will come in the USPS mail sometime this century. I think the delivery is getting a little bit better. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to hit the road, go home and see my lovely family. I hope you're having a great evening at home. Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative News Break. I will see you tomorrow.